Let's move on to main topic number 3, shall we? And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by TheCineMike. And TheCineMike writes, "Hey, John and Rob, get ready for those tossed salad and scrambled eggs. According to multiple reports, Paramount Plus is eyeing to revive the hit sitcom Frasier. Kelsey Grammer is in talks to reprise the iconic character of Dr. Frasier Crane, as well as the other cast members, sans the late John Mahoney, obviously, who might also return in some capacity. What are your thoughts?" Okay, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, Rob, I remember we talked about this. There was some discussion, some whispers about maybe bringing back Frasier again, because bringing back and reviving old series has been all the rage. Whether it's X-Files coming back, Will and Grace coming back, Roseanne, now known as The Connors, coming back. I mean, it's been all the rage, including with movies. They've been doing the same thing with movies. But I remember a while ago, there was some talk about Frasier coming back. And by the way, Tumbling Tornado in the live chat put in a super chat badge. Thank you for that, Tumbling. There's been a lot of talk about Frasier. And anyway, this comes to us from the good folks over at Variety, who writes, "Series star Kelsey Grammer has been trying to get the revived show off the ground for some time, according to sources. One potential hangup for the show, though, is the cost. After all, Frasier was a successful spin-off of the successful show Cheers, which both shows costing a pretty penny by the time they went off the air. Grammer and any other stars from the original series who would return for the revival would no doubt expect pay comparable to what they were making at the time of the show ended." So that comes to us from Variety, and of course Paramount Plus is looking at launching this thing up. I gotta disagree with the theory there that the Variety writer has that, if they bring this back, then Kelsey Grammer and all the other cast of Frasier are going to want the same salary they had when Frasier was one of the most popular series on TV over a decade ago. I mean, Rob, I can't imagine. I've got to think that Kelsey Grammer and everybody else involved with the show have to understand that now this is not the same context. I can't believe they would be insisting for the same kind of scale of money that they were getting before. Now, if they do 1 or 2 seasons of it and it's a big mega hit again and it's a top 5 show, well, then maybe they'll want their money. But getting back to the principle of this, Frasier was a delightful comedy. I mean, it was a really great, I mean, some people think it was better than the show it was spun off from, which was Cheers. There are some people think it was an even better show. And I'm actually a big fan of Kelsey Grammer, just in general. I think the dude's really great. I loved him as Beast.
Yep.
Rob, I loved him as Dr. Hank McCoy in X-Men. I thought he was really great hearing that voice and then seeing him come back to play it again at the end of Days of Future Past. I thought that was awesome. So yeah, dude, listen, sign me up. I think this sounds great. Rob, what do you think about them reviving Frasier for Paramount Plus?
Well, I kind of, if there's a reason, if they can incorporate, like when they brought Will and Grace back, for instance, the world had changed since it had left the air. And there's more things to comment on. And I guess bringing back Frasier, you like these characters, and I can see why people enjoy it. It's familiar. It's a recognizable IP that people already know and love. But I would hope that if they bring it back, that they have something more to say. We're getting all these revivals. Sex and the City is coming back. Frasier's coming back. And I think of a lot of these shows as being a part of a certain time. Like the era in which they come out. And I think in a way, kind of sometimes bringing back these popular franchises years later, it's almost like Dead Man Walking. It's sort of this crass attempt. We can't create anything new, so let's bring back these big hits again. And it's kind of weird. But if they have something to say, if the creators think, you know what, we have a new spin on it. We live in a very different world than the world Frasier Crane left the last time we saw him on his own show. And if there's a way in, then I'm all for it. But I think we also have a tendency to be stuck and moving forward. It's hard to make a new show. It's much easier to go back and play with that nostalgia and get those characters back.
Is that easier, though? Is that easier? I'm not convinced that it is. I mean, when you look at the television landscape today as opposed to when Frasier was on, there are so many more avenues and networks and formats for new content to go out there. And there's such a huge demand of content, and we have a lot of new shows coming all the time. And I don't know that it is particularly easier to try to revive something from before. I mean, I think Ben Stiller's Starsky and Hutch kind of proves that. It ain't easy to try to go back and revive that stuff at time. But, you bring up, what do you say? Is there ever a better time? Who was somebody in our live chat, Kimberly G85 in our live chat brings up a great point. Mental health. I mean, we're talking about Dr. Frasier Crane, who's there to try to help you. And has it ever been more important than today about addressing issues of mental health and stuff like that? I think that could be huge. But I would want to throw out one more thing on this, Rob. And maybe don't represent the majority of people, but while I love great television drama, whether it's in Breaking Bad or whether it's a Game of Thrones or things like that, I watch television a little bit differently than I watch movies, because one of the big things to me about television, and this is why I watched Supernatural for like 15 years, is because there's something about TV where I just love these characters, and I love every week getting to sit down for an hour and hang out with these characters.
Right.
Because Supernatural, not every season was fabulous as from a story point of view, but I still had a great time because I just loved hanging out with Sam and Dean and Castiel and Crowley and, whoever else. I just love hanging out with the characters. And I think Frasier, I mean, Cheers was kind of built on that too, but I think Frasier gives that a little bit. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but you're right about the fact that just bringing them back doesn't mean it's going to work. You still got to have great topics. You still got to make a story for them. You still have to infuse life into these characters again. And just slapping the name Frasier on it isn't going to make it a hit. So it'll be interesting to see. I will miss Mahoney, though, the guy who played Frasier's and Niles' dad.
Yeah, I mean, again, that changes the dynamic of something. As much as I am a defender of something like, say, Godfather 3, when I saw Godfather 3, I love the Corleone family. But when they brought back Godfather 3 and you don't have Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen, who was such an integral part of that mythos, it didn't really, it didn't work. It wasn't the Godfather because you were missing that component. And I feel like John Mahoney was a huge part of Frasier, huge part of that show. And, can they capture that magic when a cornerstone of the show itself is missing?
Yeah. So we'll see how they do that. All right, guys, question is, what do you think about the Frasier revival idea? I personally like it a lot. Maybe you never did watch it originally. Maybe you liked it more than us. What are your thoughts on this? Jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys.